let's take a look at how Deutsche Bank is connected to every single financial firm and financial product on the planet. Because even though they've been around since 1870, it was in the end of the 80s that they really went for their global push. And what actually happened with them is that they became what's called a global universal bank. Now, I haven't been a stockbroker since the 90s, but we never had global universal bank terms then. Lehman was also classified as a global universal bank. And what that actually means is that they are globally interconnected and touch every single product. Global, universal. So when Deutsche Bank sneezes, the whole world will catch pneumonia. Now let me show you how they're actually interconnected. Because these larger colorful dots represents all of the banks in the US, in Europe. Let's see, how come this is not? Oops, I'm sorry, it was just not unfolding properly. But you can see in the US, in Europe, and in Asia. So these larger ones, you might even recognize your banks. But look at all of these gray lines, almost like a spider web under there. Well, those actually represent additional interconnected relationships. So can you see how interconnected to the entire globe and every product that there is? Can you see this interconnection? So it can start here, but it could start there just as well. It can start anywhere. Do you remember those dominoes where it takes a long time to put together, but you push one domino and that whole domino run implodes? That only takes a second to happen. It may take days, months, years to build that run, but when you tip that first domino over, everybody goes down. And that's my concern here. But the other thing that comes up pretty regularly, you've probably read about it, are the similarities and the differences between Deutsche Bank and Lehman. So I think it would make some sense to take a look at those. Okay. And we're spooling. Oh. Okay. All right, we're good, we're good. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. A little technical trouble. But we're going to start with the similarities. First of all, both of them began in the 1800s. And both became global universal banks. And both were highly leveraged. Roughly, Deutsche Bank's 29-to-1, Lehman's 30-to-1. It's a half dozen one, half dozen the other. Their stocks appear on a very similar trajectory. And the derivatives against whether or not they will default on loans also looks really, really similar. So you can see all of these similarities. But now I would like to talk about really the difference. Because back in 2008, it was a choice by the central banks to not bail out Lehman when they were bailing everybody else out. They wanted us to know that too big to fail just really didn't exist. Well, that was a choice back then. And what they did while they were bailing everybody else out was they painted themselves into a corner. All of these new policy tools, quantitative easing, interest on reserves for banks, and negative interest rates, they're telling us, and we are all suspecting, that the central banks are out of ammunition. And with the size of Deutsche's derivative book, which was much larger than Lehman's, it's the biggest derivative book on the planet, there's just no way that that is bailable.